I'm going to move it over to Erin to introduce our speaker.
Thanks, Tara. So our speaker today is Valerie Renk. Some of you may have talked with her in the breakout room. She has been the CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Dane County since 2012. The organization builds homes, communities, and hope by partnering with families to build 15 to 20 homes a year, running 2 retail home supply restores, a bank that finances the 300 plus homes they have built over 32 years, and running a nonprofit organization. She manages a staff of 34 employees, 3,000 volunteers, and an annual budget of more than $7 million. Previously, she was Worldwide Foundation Executive Director for the World Council of Credit Unions, working in global microfinance development. Before World Council, she worked for the Agronomic Science Foundation, World Dairy Expo, and CUNA. Valerie's professional affiliations have included serving on the board of the Alumni Association of the UW-Madison College of Ag and Life Sciences, the Community Investment Board of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago, president of the Wisconsin 4-H Foundation, with committee service in Downtown Madison Rotary and Downtown Madison Inc., DMI. She's spoken to numerous groups, including a cooperative microfinance panel at the United Nations. She graduated with distinction from UW-Madison with a BS in agriculture. Valerie lives with her husband, Jeff Renk, just outside Sun Prairie, and has 2 adult children. So without further ado, here is Valerie to talk to us about Habitat for Humanity of Dane County.
Thank you, Erin. That was a pretty impressive resume. But really the most important things is that I know Mike Dillis and that I was smart enough to hire Paul Sukenik. So there we go. That's the important thing. So now you've seen enough of me. I'm going to share my screen and show you some pictures about Habitat. That's way more fun. Okay. So this is a picture of me on a work site, just to show you that I actually have built a house once or twice. But generally they say, Val, you just go back to the administrative office and let us do the building, because that's not my forte at all. Oh, there we go. Oops. There you go. That's what happens when you hit too many buttons. Okay. So first I want to start out by saying thank you. I know you guys have given us a grant. Most recently, you supported our financial capability training. You know, everybody knows we build houses, and I'll talk a little bit more later about the repair and the financial capability training we do, but I am super excited about financial capability because we can help a lot more families a lot more quickly with that program. So I'll tell you more lately, but I just wanted to say thank you right away. Our mission statement talks about bringing the community together to build homes, community, and hope. And I'd like to start out with that because everybody thinks, oh, you build houses. No, we build homes. And by building homes, we build stronger families, and that makes stronger communities. But you know what? What I like the best is that because of our model and the way we work, and I'll tell you more about that, my ultimate goal is to have more hardworking families who would not be able to get a home without Habitat to be able to feel like, yes, if I work hard, I can help my family have a better life because of Habitat. And that's what I mean about the hope. That is what I love about Habitat. Now, you hear a lot about the housing crisis in Dane County. To me, there's a lot of parts to it, but the biggest one, the bottom line, is that roughly speaking, the population is growing about 2% a year, and the housing stock, available houses, apartments, places to live, is growing about 1%. So every year that gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So what do families do? They double up, they get more crowded. You know, they go outside of Dane County and have longer commutes, which is more expensive, and parents have less time to spend with their kids at their activities or helping them study. All sorts of things that are not good for our families and for our communities. And by the way, I threw this picture in. This is actually a home. It's right across from what used to be Manna Cafe. I know it just closed. And it was a house that they're tearing down, and they call us and they say, can you come and deconstruct this house? We go in and we pull out cabinets, we pull out, you know, wainscoting, fixtures, whatever we can, and we take it to our restores and we sell it there. And we use that to help finance our work. So a lot of people don't know we do deconstruction. So if you like to tear apart things, that's something you can do with Habitat. And I also love this picture because one of our past deconstruction managers used to be a Hollywood videographer. He did Field of Dreams. He worked with Robert Redford, some really famous folks. So I always like to say, I have something in common with Robert Redford. We had the same photographer. It makes for a good story anyway. Okay, the number one question I get from people is, how are your families selected for those free houses you give away? Okay, they're not free, we don't give them away, but how are families selected? good rental history, right? You're going to be a good homeowner if you were a good renter. You pay on time, you're a good neighbor, there's no police calls, you're following the rules. Easy peasy, number one. Number two, we serve families who earn 30 to 60% of the area median income. So right now, for a family of four, that's about 30 to 60,000 in income. It's not the people who are, living out of their car. It's people who are earning enough money that they can pay back their Habitat mortgage, but not so much that they don't deserve a little extra help. Now, this is a thing that trips up most people, that they can't qualify for our program. We do not want more than 15% of their income going to debt. Okay, why is that? Well, two reasons. First, by the time we give them their mortgage, they'll be making so much debt payments that it'll be tough for them to make those payments. But also, we take their mortgages sometimes and resell them to banks so that we can, keep that money circling. And that has to be what we call a qualified mortgage. So we need to keep that under I think it's about 43%, that's been changing, but we need to keep what we pay for the mortgage plus the current debt they come in under that ceiling to be a qualified mortgage. So we got to follow all the same rules that a bank follows. So that's part of the reason we want to resell their mortgages, some of them. We want them to be a resident in Dane County for at least a year so that they're not moving in and then deciding this isn't the right thing for them. We want our families to put in $325 for one mortgage holder, $375 for two mortgage holders. We call it sweat equity, work on their home or other Habitat homes. So they learn about what it takes for home construction. They're putting in their sweat hours as equity into the home since they're not putting in a huge down payment. That's a big difference between a Habitat home and one on the open market. And lastly, we call something willingness to partner. Now that's kind of a little bit hard to get your hands around maybe, but we want our families to come work on the work site with volunteers. We want them to maybe talk to the media. We want them to come in and work with our staff and help us in different ways. And we want them to be a good partner. They have to be willing to share their story. How do we get people to donate or volunteer if they can't learn, well, how does this family benefit and what does it mean to them? How is it different? Some of these families come with pretty difficult stories. They've been through medical hardships that made them go bankrupt. They have maybe kids with special needs that mean maybe both parents can't work. They've had some really tough situations, and that's not always easy to share. But if we want to build support for our program, we need those stories and we need them to be willing to share that with some of our folks. So that's what we call willingness to partner, be willing to be open and honest and just, talk about why they've come to Habitat and how the house is going to help their family. And the last thing, they need to pay a mortgage for 24 to 30 years after they get in their house. Our families pay full price for their house. The deal is a below market, zero or a really good deal on a mortgage, but they still have it and they're going to be paying for it, just like probably a lot of you did, 24 to 30 years. And that's a big commitment. So here's a specific story. Candy and Greg, they were living in some prairie. They actually met when they were both going to auto mechanic school. Got married, were saving for a house, but they kind of got derailed by some health issues. Candy, the mom, was having terrible migraines, and she also had some terrible knee problems, and she had multiple surgeries. Meanwhile, both of the girls came up with special needs, autism, learning disabilities, and one of their real frustrations is Candy would take them out to play, and you know what kids with special needs are, they're just going to run, right? And with her knee, Candy couldn't run after them. Not a safe situation. So they literally became prisoners in their apartment because Candy couldn't run after them. She had to quit working to take them to all their special therapies and treatments and deal with her medical issues. Their dream for owning their own house literally just got derailed. So they were really frustrated. How are we going to ever get out of this rental situation? So Candy had two people at their school say to her, hey, Habitat for Humanity is recruiting nearby in this neighborhood here. You should go to their informational session. And she says, when people give me advice, I always take it. So she went to our informational session and she learned, she didn't want to take her kids out of that school because they had IEP plans, right? Plans for kids with special needs. And she's like, oh my gosh, not only are they building right here, one of the homes is a rehab where there's a fence, because that's not something we normally do for our homes, right? We keep them simple and affordable, but with a fence, the kids could play outside and she wouldn't have to run after them. So luckily this duplex rehab worked out. They moved in, they could keep in the same school district, keep their IEP plans. And it's really been a wonderful experience for them. She's got her knee fixed. The girls are doing really well in school. It's been a really, really good thing for their family. Now, this is a picture from a Haiti build. Habitat is in about 87 different countries, last count I saw. And you can go on a trip and go build in other countries. We're actually partnered here, Dane County, with El Salvador, but there's other countries you can go build with. So one of our volunteers, Dee, she's second from the right in the front in the blue shirt there. She's gone on a Carter build with the Carters. You can see them in the front there in Haiti twice. And I love it because she says, you know, the Carters are there the entire 10 days. They work with us, they sleep with us, they eat with us. There's only one difference. The Secret Service insists that they have a separate porta potty. Somehow that keeps them safer, I guess. I don't know. So we have helped over 300 families improve their lives over 32 years. We've got great statistics, both locally and nationally. Kids who grow up in a house that their family owns are more likely to finish school, more likely to go on to college or a post-secondary school. They have better health, right? I mean, and usually we talk about things like asthma from smoke coming in a nearby apartment, or, you know, rats in a substandard building. But nowadays with COVID, it's just so obvious, right? You're not having to go down in an apartment where there's shared laundry or shared parking. Having your own home is a really big benefit right now. Finances. If you own your own home, you're locked into your payments. It really is a great financial commitment to own your own home. And it builds wealth, right? Especially now when we're really seeing a lot more emphasis on helping people of color close that gap. Owning your own home is the best way to build assets. So for people of color, if they can own their own home, that helps close that racial gap too, for people, any kind of people who are underserved. Crime. You are less likely to be a victim of crime if you own your own home. Okay, a little bit more about numbers, as long as we're on numbers. The last figure, I probably need to update this, but the last figure for property tax dollars paid in Dane County by Habitat homeowners, $850,000. 93% of our homeowners are still in their home, so it's a sustainable program that works. Our delinquencies, very similar to a bank. Now, the down payment started at $1,000. You know, when you think about a regular for-profit bank, you're paying what, 10, 20% down payment. Homeowners can make payments, right? Because they're paying their rent. They can make a mortgage payment. It's that down payment that is really tough, even for a lot of middle income people to do. But for people living paycheck to paycheck, it's that down payment that is a huge barrier for them. So with the Habitat model, if you're only paying, $1,000 or $1,500 for down payment, that's huge. So they're paying their mortgage for 30 years. I like to think of it as a pay it forward model, because we raise the money for the house from corporate and private donors and our restores. I'm going to talk about restores more in a minute. We use volunteers and gifts in kind to build the house. Again, the homeowners pay market rate for their house. Their payments are capped at 28% of their income so that it's affordable to them. And then we give them a 0 or low interest mortgage, actually 2 to 4 mortgages. And then when they pay that mortgage for 30 years, they're really paying that forward to help another family. So it's kind of a complicated model, but just basically the bottom line is they pay full price. The deal is in the mortgage. Now I get a lot of questions about, gee, it's a pandemic. How is that affecting Habitat? Well, the biggest thing was fewer volunteers, right? A lot of volunteers, corporations are not coming out because they're working remote, or a lot of our volunteers are older folks. They're staying home because they're worried about their health, or they're taking care of their grandkids, right? So their kids can work. So we are down in volunteers, which is something that's never happened to us before. So we've engaged some AmeriCorps volunteers that'll help us with building through the winter here. We're also trying to get some NCCC volunteers. Don't ask me what that stands for, but it's another government program. Mortgage payment concern. We were worried when the pandemic first came out. We were worried that some of our homeowners would have a hard time making their payments because a lot of them are losing jobs, losing hours. So we did a special fundraising campaign. And we did have, I think, 14 homeowners, Paul would know for sure, that lost jobs, lost hours. We helped them out for a couple of months, and they seem to have gotten back on track. Our families are hard workers. They know they've got commitments, And with a little help for a few months, they've really gotten back on track. So that has not been a concern. I was frankly very worried we'd have a lot of mortgage defaults. Not an issue. We revised a lot of our procedures on the work sites and in the restores, putting up barriers, cleanliness things. We put sinks on all of our work sites, revised our manuals and all of our procedures to just make it a little bit as safe as we can. We also revised our goal this financial year from 16 houses down to 13, knowing that we were going to be losing volunteers. The other issue was the restores. And if you're not familiar with the restores, they are stores we get new and used building supplies, everything from wood to sinks to windows to lighting fixtures, and then we resell those and the profits are used to support our work. There's one on the east side and one on the west side. So when the pandemic first hit, we kind of closed down for about 3 weeks to retool and redo our procedures. And that really hurt us because that is really an important part of our funding model is the restore. But we redid the procedures, redeployed some of our staff, and now things are going really well because think of all the people who want to redo their houses because they're stuck at home, right? And the restore is a really great value place to come and buy, your crown molding, your paint, whatever, to redo your house. So the restores, I was there last Saturday. It was busy, busy, busy. So if you need anything for your house, come check out the restores. So speaking of the restores, yes, they are mainly there to make money to support our home building mission, but they're also really important because they have diverted 5,000 tons from the Dane County landfill. Because when people donate their furniture, their tile to the restore, they get to put to use instead of going to the landfill. So that's really important. So if you haven't been, this is actually a picture of the one on Odana Road on the west side. And there's also one across from the high school on Monona Drive. They're just fun to look at too. Now, this was the financial capability training that I mentioned, your grant help support. This is really important to me because we can only help so many families a year. The most we've ever helped with a home building is 20 families in a year because it's so expensive to build a house. If we can help more families learn basic credit, budgeting, financial skills, or more young people learn this as they get older, they can save for their own house. They can save for college. More families can save for retirement. Just think what a transformation that can be to the lives of these families, and we can help hundreds in a year. So this is something we've always done for the families we build with. And now we've been helping families we turn down. And now we're expanding this to even more families. And our next step is we're going to reach out to some employers to see if we can work with their folks too. So this is something we really want to grow as we get down the road in the future. So keep that in mind. If you know people, we're doing some virtual training, assigning some mentors, and especially after COVID gets a little bit out of the way here, we want to really grow this program. And I love this picture because we're halfway in a bank vault. And then home repairs. We actually pause this program right now because we want to make sure we complete our commitments to the families we're building homes with, but we hope to start it up in the spring again. Same kind of thing. We're helping the families of modest means, that same group, and we're helping people who are in their homes to repair them. Now, I really thought when we started this program that it was going to be helping older people to stay in their home. And that's true. We're doing a lot of that. But there's another group we're seeing a little bit of, and that is young people who bought the only home they could afford, a real fixer-upper. And you probably read how young people, nobody's teaching them to change a light bulb or do anything, right? Well, there's some truth to that. So we're also helping some young people who've gotten into homes that don't know what to do and helping them to make them more livable. And again, it helps make the community more sustainable if we can keep some of these older homes and fix them up. Now, does that sound kind of fun? There's a lot of ways you can engage with Habitat. You can come out and build. If not now, when things are a little more stable, you can build just one day, or you can have an ongoing, day of the week. Then you kind of get to know your buddies out there. We've been doing 1 hour lunch and learns kind of like this, and we'll probably be doing them virtually in the future. So if you've got a church group or, just your family or a group, we're happy to do more of these 1 hour informational sessions. So we'd love to do more of these. Let us know. So I mentioned the international trips. Every year we've been trying to go to El Salvador, and let me tell you, it's not easy. That's me in the front with the red scarf there. That's actually a sewer pit. It probably doesn't perk out. It doesn't, fit our standards here, but it's hard work, doing that. But how wonderful is that? The families are right there as you're building every day. And you really get to see this take shape, a home, a very simple 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom home right in front of your eyes. So we go to El Salvador every year, but there's other countries all around the world, and it's a working trip. So, you do pay for it, but it's fully tax deductible because it's a working trip everywhere: Asia, Africa, Australia, developing countries. So that's something, if you want to go to the Habitat website, you can see some of those options. The other thing people always think about, oh, if I'm going to volunteer for Habitat, you always think you're building a house. Well, we also have like 15 committees. This is actually our green team that goes out and helps with plant sales and things. We have a finance committee. We have a marketing committee. We have a faith committee. We have all sorts of different committees. So if you're like me that likes to sit in the office and tell other people what to do, you can do that on one of our committees. And then lastly, besides construction, we need a lot of folks at the restores, cashiers to check people out. Like here's 2 guys working in the lighting department. Lights come in and they need to be cleaned up, priced, and put out on the shelves. So just basic, retail stocking. But here's one thing everybody can do. So many people say, oh, Habitat, you give away homes for free to the homeless. No, we sell homes with training to people of modest means to move them from renters to homeowners so they can build assets and make a more stable life for their kids and help their community. And for me, it's a lot about helping the kids, right? So the kids go on to have a better life and make things more sustainable and help the kids make a better life forever. So what I would ask is everybody today to do something really simple. Just tell a friend what you've learned. That's easy, right? So maybe think about that at the end of the Zoom. Who do you know that might be interested? Or maybe that's something at Thanksgiving if you're going to see somebody new, or if not in the future, just tell a friend what you learned. That's a pretty awesome thing to do. And then I'll close with one more story, and hopefully it'll be a little early. So if you have questions, we can do questions. So this is Amy Doble. She is in Mount Horeb. And I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the call. I love to tell her story because she's been in her house since 2006. So she really has some results. She was sitting down to dinner with her kids, and it was like 10 to 6. And she's going through the kids' backpacks and getting dinner on the table. And she sees a flyer that says, Habitat informational meeting at the high school, 6 p.m. And she's like, oh my gosh, if I don't get there within 10 minutes, I will not have the opportunity to apply for the one Habitat home that will be in Mount Horeb. So she said to kids, you guys figure out dinner, I'm getting to the school. And she did. And she didn't know this, but our rule is when we have an informational meeting that starts the process to apply to become a homeowner, that door closes at 6 p.m. And if you arrive at 6:01, you will be told, I'm sorry, the door is shut. Valuable information has started to be given out. You will have to come back in 3 months for the next one. And we are tough about that because we want people to know this is the way Habitat runs. We have rules, and this is the way we're running, and you will get on board. And luckily, Amy didn't get there at 6:01. She got there at 5:59. She applied for the home and she got it. But here's the really wonderful part about her story. Those 3 kids spent a lot of time with all the Habitat volunteers who were there over the next year or so that they were building her house. And they were all so impressed with how people in the community were willing to give back to them. 2 of them went into volunteer service. One was a missionary in Africa, one is in the military, and the other is a teacher overseas. They've all gone into professions because they wanted to give back. And they all talked about how Habitat was what got them to do that. It's just a wonderful story. So good for Amy, and she's doing well. She works at one of the hospitals, is still there and doing well. And she credits a lot of getting those kids from the point where they were saying, Mom, we're tired of switching schools every year, not knowing who to sit by in the school bus, not having friends at school, to being in a really good place socially and getting better off in school. And so it just did really well for them. So anyway, that is kind of a quick overview of the Habitat story. And I will stop sharing and I will ask if there are any questions.